Well, the executive sedan segment really is a two-horse race between the Toyota Corolla Altis as well as the Hyundai Elantra. So how good is it, and is it better than the Toyota Corolla? We'll find out on the show today. Well, let's talk about the positive aspects of the Corolla's cabin first. And first things first, it's a very practical and very good place for storage. That's because it has a lot of places to keep your odds and ends. Well, the other positive aspect, of course, is the fact that you don't really have to take your eyes off the road if you want to change the temperature settings, because you get minimal controls and they're really very intuitive to use. On the downside, even though the quality of materials is pretty good in isolation when you compare it with some of its other rivals, it doesn't really feel so special. Even though the black and beige works really well, this plasticky material in the middle around the stereo system really feels very cheap and seems to be borrowed from the much cheaper Toyota Etios. Well, other Corolla strengths like excellent cushioning on the seats remains, and if you are planning a long trip, this is a great car to be in, because you will come out of it relaxed and as fresh as when you started the trip. Well, here I am now inside the new Elantra, and this car is much better than the Toyota Corolla Altis in terms of overall cabin ambience, as well as the materials used inside this cabin are definitely superior to the ones on the Corolla Altis. Well, unlike the Corolla Altis, which really suffers from a lot of cheap feeling plastics, especially the entertainment console in the middle, this car has no cheap plastics at all. It really is a very classy and very upmarket affair inside the Elantra's cabin. In terms of seat comfort, the Elantra is again ahead of the Corolla, and both the bolstering as well as the overall seat squab is much better than that car, and even the bolstering on the side is better than the Corolla. And what that means is that if you are someone who enjoys pushing his car into corners, then these seats will hold you better than the ones on the Corolla. Well, in terms of equipment comparison, there's absolutely no way that the Corolla can hold a candle to the Hyundai. Remember, this of course is a Hyundai car, and it comes completely loaded with all the bells and whistles. If you want to know more about both these cars, you can always head to a website and click on these links below to figure out which one has the better equipment. Well, here I am now inside the Corolla's back seat, and just like Corollas of the older generation, this is really a good place to be. Headroom, as you can see, is pretty good, and knee room is really impressive as well. And of course, I have a place below the front seat where I can stretch my legs at. The other good part about the Corolla seats is the excellent cushioning. You get a very wide cabin at the back, and that means is that you can generally sit three over here in comfort. Well, one downside inside the cabin is the fact that there are no AC vents at the back, so that's a bit of an issue. Well, it's a very close fight between the Elantra and the Corolla when it comes to rear seat comfort, and this car definitely has the better materials overall and feels like a more upmarket place than the Corolla. In terms of practicality, it's a good place as well. You get this big armrest over here, which also has this huge box where you can keep your chocolates and other knickknacks. You also get large door bins, which can generally house those big 1-liter bottles from your home. And you also get these big pockets behind the front seats where you can keep those magazines and other knickknacks for those long journeys. So who wins this battle between the Elantra and the Corolla? Well, actually no one, because even the Corolla offers you excellent comfort as well as luxury in the back seats. The boot is pretty big and very usable on the Corolla Altis. In terms of capacity, it's 470 liters, but it really is very well shaped, and it's a very massive boot. As you can see, the opening is also pretty wide. When it comes to the battle of the boot, the Elantra is slightly behind the Corolla Altis, because this boot is officially 420 liters in space, but that is slightly lower than the one on the Altis, which is roughly about 470 liters. Well, so here we are driving the Toyota Corolla, and this car of course comes with two engine options. There's a 1.8 liter petrol unit, and there's also the diesel, which we're driving today. Even though it's low on power, performance is more or less adequate once you of course get the revs going from the engine, and it's a little lazy below 2000 rpm, but once of course you push it beyond that mark, the performance is pretty good. And on the highway, it is a very relaxed car to drive, because of course you get the additional 6th gear, which very few cars in this category offer. Well, in terms of noise refinement, the engine is pretty okay when you are on the highway or you are cruising, but when you are in the city and when you are revving this car hard, you can make out that it is a diesel which is powering this car and not a petrol, because it has that typical diesel clatter, especially when you start it from cold. Well, the one word to describe the Corolla's performance is relaxed. This is a car which really makes you feel very calm and very peaceful inside the cabin, and that's largely due to the fact that all the controls, including the steering wheel, the clutch as well as the gearbox, are really light and very accurate to use. Well, the Elantra of course comes with a choice of a 1.6 litre diesel as well as a 1.8 litre petrol, but it really is the diesel that you should stick with because it offers good refinement levels and also has lots of power as well as flexibility. While the Corolla Altis can simply not hold a candle to the Elantra's diesel version when it comes to sheer performance. This car of course has about 126 bhp, that one has less than 90, and what that means is that this car is phenomenal, and the Corolla really does fall back in the performance department when it comes to the Elantra diesel. Well, if you keep it around 2000 and 4000 rpm, then the Elantra diesel just flies, and performance is really very punchy, and that wave of torque which really comes in makes the Elantra one of the better cars in this segment when it comes to driving. Well, this is the most refined diesel engine in this segment, and even when you start it from cold and you press that start stop button, there's very little diesel clatter which comes into the cabin, and even when you rev it really hard, it really does feel as quiet and as smooth as a petrol motor. Well, in terms of high-speed stability, there's very little to choose between both these cars, and both of them feel adequate when you are doing speeds in excess of 100 kph, and even in the city both of them offer you similar levels of comfort when dealing with those potholed and badly surfaced roads. Well, so if you are someone who enjoys driving on your own, it is the Elantra which will offer you a more rewarding experience at the end of the day over the Toyota Corolla Altis. It's easy to see why the Elantra is the winner of this comparison and really has the edge over the Toyota Corolla Altis. It offers you a much better cabin, a more refined as well as more powerful engine, and a long list of features as well. And what all that means is that the Elantra is all the executive luxury car that you will ever really need.